Thank you very much. Can we remain standing for a word of prayer? I'll now like to invite one of our constituents, Mr. Sunil Ramdas, to lead us in prayer.
Namaste, pleasant good evening. Please assume a prayer position. Oh, Lord of mercy and love, we come before you here this afternoon. We ask for your guidance, for your protection, and for your blessings, that we may be able to walk with you and be closer to you. In your name we offer our love. Gajarnanam bhutaganadi sevitam kapita jambhu phalasarabhakshanam umasutam shloka vilashakaranam namami viganeshwara parapankajam. Om Shanti, 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 Hari Om.
Thank you very much. You may all have your seats. Tonight is a great night. Tonight we are in the Lion's Den. And tonight I welcome you all to the fortress that is known as Oropouche East. So good evening, my UNC family. Good evening to those of you who have traveled to be here with us. And a pleasant good evening to those of you, the thousands of you rather, who are listening through the various media platforms. On Ian Alleyne Network, Radio Jagrati broadcasting on radio, TV, Facebook, and Street 91.9 FM. So, when you get the link, share the live. I'm Nicholas Kanhai, the local government representative for Barakpur West. So I too would like to say a special welcome. We are on the Barakpur West side of Papri Road, and we are on the Barakpur West side of Oropouche East. So I'm very happy that we are having this virtual cottage meeting here tonight. Tonight we'll be hearing from various councillors and other parliamentary personalities who will be sharing their experiences. Because tonight we will be campaigning on issues. That is what the UNC is about. We campaign on issues. You know, since the day the election was announced, we have had the United National Congress putting forward all their ideas, all their plans for the next 5 years. And we have had our current government, or failed regime rather, campaigning on 2010 and 2013. The blame, blame, blame game. Tonight I would like to introduce our first speaker, Councillor Kimati Cholan. She is on her second term as a local government representative for Roshad Barakpur East, which spans across Naparima, Oropouche East and Siparia, serving an electorate of approximately 8,400 persons. And service under a PNM regime is tantamount to suffocation and oppression. Councillor Cholan's calm and composed demeanor must not be mistaken for her love and fight for the people whom she represents. And she, along with Dr. Munilal, have been advocating for rebuilding of the Tinpanali Road, where a landslip occurred a few years back. An entire family has been displaced, including an 80-year-old great-grandmother, Ms. Chandra Ramgobin. No one cares. The PNM government, no care or compassion for elderly, no care or compassion for opposition constituencies. Folks, I invite Councillor Kimati Cholan to share her plethora of challenges as a councillor since 2016.
A pleasant good night. Yeah. A pleasant good night to all. All protocols observed. Tonight, I want to take this opportunity to point out some of the challenges we are facing at the Penal-Debe Regional Corporation. We have held several discussions with the current government, attempting to meet the needs of our burgesses. We have been given limited resources and materials. The financial constraints we face and the prolonged projects that we simply cannot complete due to lack of fundings. All discussions and negotiations were futile. Here are some prime examples of this. Currently, there is construction of a box drain in Mohan Trace Papari Road. However, completion is taking some time. Tin Pan Alley has to be paved in stages due to limited resources. Dr. Munilal and I had several site visits with the Ministry of Local Government regarding the major landslip in Tin Pan Alley, but once again, they were futile. Dr. Munilal continued to plead on behalf of the residents to have that landslip repaired. I know on August 10th, when the UNC forms the next government, that landslip will be repaired. Are you satisfied with the representation of this present government? If your answer is no, on August 10th, come out and vote. Vote for Dr. Roodal Munilal. Vote for a government who cares. Vote for the future of yourselves and your family. Since 2016, Dr. Roodal Munilal has proven to be a man of the people and has supported me in bringing relief to the burgesses. In this light, I wish to fully endorse Dr. Roodal Munilal as the next Member of Parliament for Oropouche East. Now is the time. I thank you.
Let's put our hands together for Councillor Julian. Now is the time. And now is the time for me to welcome a cultural icon in our community. So I'd like to now welcome Mr. Jairaj Singh to bring greetings. Thank you.
Now is the time! Now is the time for man who stood the test of time. Now is the time for the man and the people of Oropouche. Now is the time for Dr. Munilal.
Sorry. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And having been introduced as a cultural icon, let me just say to you, "So saal pehle." Give me a nice round of applause. Councillors of the Penal-Debe Regional Corporation, former chairman, Mr. Doc. Ladies and gentlemen, let me ask you to put your hands together for the next MP, the next Member of Parliament for Oropouche East. Give Dr. the Honorable Roodal Munilal, give him a nice round of applause. I also want to take this opportunity to acknowledge one of the finest politicians this country has seen. He served as the Minister of Education, and because of his service today, ladies and gentlemen, I can stand here and boast and say my son is a third-year medical student. Give the Honorable Dr. Tim Gopi Singh, give him a nice round of applause. I just want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that I am here not to endorse Dr. Munilal, and I say this because when the lion of the jungle is out on the prowl, the lion of the jungle do not need no little bobtail agouti to say, well, that is the lion. Dr. Munilal, ladies and gentlemen, I tell you, can stand on his own merit, doesn't need people like myself. However, I am here because I live in Barrackpore. My wife is from right next door. And as a resident of Barrackpore, I am here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, of the importance of this upcoming election. There are many people who have said that, and you hear people saying election after election, this is an important election, and this is the mother of all elections, and X, Y, and Z. Yes. But this upcoming election, ladies and gentlemen, is about life. It is about life and death. Life and death, like death like dead, death like going down by the creek. And it is also about debt. DEBT also. Ladies and gentlemen, this PNM regime has squandered the resources of this country. This PNM government has absolutely nothing to show. You know, you hear people saying in the media, and you see on social media, COVID-19, the government played its role and its part, and they did so many good things, and they are rated as X, Y, and Z. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID impacted this country from March of 2020. There was life before COVID. For the past 4 years, this government has achieved nothing, absolutely nothing, and have exhausted all of $300 billion and counting, and have nothing to show. All of us who are here live somewhere in Barrackpore, live somewhere in rural Trinidad, and all of you will remember between 2010 and 2015 the kind of development that rural Trinidad saw. All of you, all of the roads, all of those back roads in Kanhai Road and number 2 and Kunjal and Komoto and all of these areas saw a level of development that we never saw. We never saw. So I am here just to remind the people who are viewing, those of you who are viewing on social media and radio, and just to remind you of the importance of this election, this coming election. It is of extreme signal importance that once again we support the United National Congress, we support the Member of Parliament for Oropouche East, we support all of the UNC candidates, and ladies and gentlemen, we support the Honorable Kamla Prasad Bisesa. This argument is almost a foregone conclusion. We cannot, the PNM has absolutely nothing to show. I have been monitoring social media, and I have been monitoring the mainstream media. What the PNM, I will tell you what the PNM has, ladies and gentlemen, what the PNM has been doing, what they have to show. I saw up to today, I saw Minister Clarence Rambarat with a box of body seed, body and pumpkin and okra, walking about. And that is what they are offering. After all of these decades of PNM rule. And the Minister of Information, Donna Cox, driving around in a car. She's driving around in a car and saying, conversation with Donna. And that is what they have been doing. Absolutely nothing to show. So, ladies and gentlemen, and those of you who are viewing, and you have your relatives, in particular, some of the marginal seats, let them know. Right now, if you look at what is happening, even the PNM, even the hardcore PNM areas are second-guessing this PNM regime. Even the PNM supporters, some of the most depressed areas, ladies and gentlemen, some of the most depressed areas are areas that have been controlled by the People's National Movement. They have a history. The PNM has had a history of impotence, and they have a history of non-performance with all of the resources over the decades that this country has seen. We have absolutely nothing to show. Outside of three regimes, the NAR, the UNC under the Honorable Basdeo Pandey, and of course the People's Partnership. It was only during those 10 years that we saw some kind of development. We have to send a message to the PNM. We have to get rid of the PNM. The PNM is like a blight. Has been like a blight over the years, ladies and gentlemen. So as I wrap up, as I close, once again, let me take this opportunity to wish all of the good people of Trinidad and Tobago all the best, and let me implore you, let me beseech you, for if not for us, for our children and the upcoming generations to come, let us get rid of this PNM. Let us repose our confidence in an administration that worked for us, ladies and gentlemen. Long live the UNC, long live the Honorable Dr. Roodal Munilal, long live the Honorable Kamla Prasad Bisesa. I thank you.
Now is the time! Now is the time for man who stood the test of time. Now is the time for the man and the people of Oropouche. Now is the time for Dr. Roodal Munilal. Hey! What time it is?
Let's put our hands together for that very strong and bold delivery from Mr. Jairaj Singh. He's an excellent spokesperson as well. He's not only good at singing, so we commend him for that. You know, on December 2nd, 2020, I pledged to work equally hard for all of you and to listen to you, to honor our differences, but always engage in opposing ideas, humility and respect. But it's the essence of what it means to be proud Trinbagonians, where it is here every creed and race finds an equal place. And Dr. Roodal Munilal has been a pillar of strength, offering words of encouragement and guidance along this path thus far. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is Mrs. Prasad Bisesa's vision of marrying youth with experience coming to life. And joining the head table, we have Dr. Tim Gopi Singh, a veteran politician, and the current member, yes, 13 years as a member of Parliament for Caroni East, and our very own, the Lion of Oropouche East, Dr. Roodal Munilal. We also have Mr. Michael Ruplal, an attorney at law, and a very accomplished attorney at law, and I'll introduce him shortly.
Munilal a lion, he's a champion, he's a lion, he's a champion, roaring lion.
Moving on, our next spokesperson will be Mr. Brian Julian. Mr. Brian Julian, he is a councillor for Bronte, which is right across the road, and he is currently serving his 4th consecutive term as a local government representative. And Bronte spans across parts of the constituency of Oropouche East and Naparima, which is essentially from Barrackpore to the outskirts of San Fernando, serving an electorate of about 7,000 people. Councillor Julian is a big guy with a big heart, and he is perhaps the most passionate councillor that I have met when representing his burgesses. He's a true team player and a man of the people. We sit next to each other in council, and our districts lay next to each other as well. And this evening I'm very honored to introduce a veteran councillor, Mr. Brian Julian, who will share his highs and his lows as a local government representative in the lead up to the 2020 general elections.
Now is the time! Now is the time for man who stood the test of time. Now is the time for the man and the people of Oropouche.
Good afternoon, all. all protocol observed, in support of Dr. Roodal Munilal. What can I be proud of from 2015 till 2020 by the way of infrastructure development within my electoral district of Bronchi, which half falls under the Oropouche East constituency? Two outstanding examples of a failed road system under this wicked PNM government is the Papari Road, Trinidad Hill, and the School Hill, just approaching 2 secondary schools. The road fails so badly that vehicles are getting alternate routes to pass to go to San Fernando and Debe. Businesses along the roadway have failed. Businessmen are complaining bitterly because their business has failed because of the deplorable road. Under the UNC government, between 2010 and 2015, Dr. Munilal rebuilt the road totally, traffic flow smoothly. When you put back this government, who does not care for your daily life? Would you put back this government? Brothers and sisters, we have to know what's going on in Trinidad. I heard just recently an ambulance from Kennedy Park was rushing to take up an ill patient near to the Barapo police station. They barely make it because of the road condition. Dr. Munilal, when the UNC was in government, he paved all road, and I will start in Barapo first. Samaru Trace, here we trace, Monkey Tongue Cemetery Street, Cottage Road, Rupinia South and North, Hassan Ali South and North, Dove Trace South and North, and I am not finished yet. We are going to part of my constituency, my areas in Diamond. Picton Settlement, Picton 1 and 2, Gopal Street, Church Street, Gosan Street, Gopal Street Extension 1 and 2, Picton Street and Settlement. This is the work that my MP has been doing for 2010-2015. And I am not finished. We have to go to Golconda Settlement. He has paved in Golconda Settlement. I have to go to Church Street in Golconda. They never see paved road until Dr. Munilal paved that road. And I am not done there. We have to go to Circle Drive, up in Friendship Village. Road 1, Road 2, Road 3, and the whole of Circle Drive. We have Havera Trace, Dr. Munilal paved it. We have Chandey Avenue, Gopal Street, Church Street in St. John Village. And not forgetting the Cottage Road in the St. John End and Gure Avenue. This is the work Dr. Munilal has done. And I am just talking about in Bronchi, in under Dr. Munilal area. And for those people who are listening to this live broadcast, can you remember the good old days under Dr. Munilal when we used to get road paved, box drain bill? We cannot take the chance anymore. We have to put back the UNC government for our children's sake, for our family's sake, and for our sake. Otherwise, the next 5 years is going to be very dark. Dr. Munilal also helped us bring in the different arms of the ministry, such as National Commission for Self-Help. Under Dr. Munilal, I can remember people within my area, just Dr. Munilal will ask and they will get self-help grant to help build back the homes. Lane of water line, Hassan Ali Trace, North, never see a water line under Dr. Munilal. Right across there. TN Tech used to wire people homes for free under the poverty program, which is no more under this government. 7 CPEP team, which has been moved to PNM areas only. We must give Dr. Munilal a chance. Give Dr. Munilal a chance. And I was certain that things in Trinidad and Tobago and things in Oropouche going to be better. There is no hope in putting back PNM government in power. After putting VAT on over 1,000 food items, ladies and gentlemen, enough is enough. Talk done. It's time to put back UNC in power. And the best party to lead Trinidad and Tobago is the United National Congress, under the stewardship of Ms. Kamala Prasad-Bisesla. Tonight, I am saying the only choice we have as MP for Oropouche East is none other than the Honorable Roodal Munilal. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
Spoken from the heart, Councillor Brian Julian. Moving straight on into our lineup of speakers, I would like to take this opportunity now to welcome Mr. Michael Ruplal, who is an accomplished attorney at law who heads the Omega Chambers. He also holds the position of president at the Assembly of Southern Lawyers. Mr. Ruplal is a proud son of the Southland and also served as a deputy chairman of the EME. Tonight, Mr. Ruplal will tell you about the PNM strategy of campaign distraction. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together and welcome Mr. Michael Ruplal.
Now is the time! Now is the time for man who stood the test of time. Now is the time for the man and the people of Oropouche. Now is the time for Munilal.
All right, good evening. Good evening, Barakpur. Good evening, Oropouches. Good evening. I want to welcome everyone here who could join us physically. We know that there's social distancing in place because of COVID-19. I also want to take the opportunity to welcome everyone who's joined us via the social media, the World Wide Web, those of you listening on Radio Jagrati. Welcome to the UNC Fortress of Oropouche East. Special good evening to Dr. Munilal, your candidate and your MP for the last 19 years, and Dr. Tim Gopi Singh, both veteran politicians. Now, I was very privileged when Dr. Munilal asked me to speak at this virtual Cottage meeting. And it's a virtual Cottage meeting because we're here to discuss the business of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, I'm sure all of you who have been seeing what's been going on social media would see that the Prime Minister, he's having a virtual lime tonight. So while on the one hand we have the UNC here getting down to the business of the people, the PNM is busy liming. Yesterday, those of you following social media would have seen as well, the Attorney General had a cocktail event in San Fernando West. We're keeping it simple. We're keeping it here. We're keeping it live with the people. Now, my team tonight, it's really about campaigning by distraction. Now, I could have chosen a number of things to speak about because when you have a government in power for the last 5 years that has done absolutely nothing, there's a lot that the opposition could talk about, right? But I think campaigning by distraction is an important theme because that is what the PNM is doing. That is what they are attempting to do, and that is what we must not allow them to do in this general election. Now, all of you would have seen over the weekend the news articles that came out. You would have heard the Prime Minister speak based on media report in The Guardian and CNC3 concerning live sport and EMBD and so on, and casting a lot of aspersions on making allegations, spurious allegations at that too, against former ministers of the People's Partnership Government. Now, we need to remember the context. The PNM has been in power since 2015. That's 5 years. They've had 5 years to investigate whatever allegations of corruption that there may be. And we here on the UNC side, we welcome that because we are a party of integrity, yes? Transparency. So we welcome the investigation. You've had 5 years to investigate these both projects, and you've come up with nothing. Yet we see, on the brink of another election, after nomination day, suddenly we are hearing talk about EMBD and arrests, live sport and arrests that are imminent and so on. That's nonsense. I stand here before you and I tell you that's nonsense, and we must not allow ourselves to be distracted by the PNM. Now, Dr. Munilal made an important point in the newspaper earlier this week as well. The PNM has embarked on a witch hunt, and there is no witch. Yeah, and that's an important thing for us to remember. 5 years, nothing. You come 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the election, and suddenly you're talking about this again. All right, so we have to make sure that we do not allow them to get distracted. Now, this government has been in 5 years, and as Nicholas has indicated in his opening remarks, and I believe one of the other councillors mentioned it as well, in that 5-year period, and I've actually done some research on it, yeah? In that 5-year period, almost $300 billion has been spent by this government. $300 billion. What can we say, Trinidad and Tobago? Forget South, forget North, forget UNC areas, forget PNM areas for a moment. What can Trinidad and Tobago show for $300 billion spent? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. There's been no worthwhile, noteworthy infrastructure. There's been no housing developments as there were under Dr. Munilal when he was Minister of Housing. There's been no development of the Southlands, the rural areas. There's been no development of the urban areas. There's been no advancement of our agricultural sector. We've instead had the closure of Petrotrin, which was in many respects one of the lifelines of Trinidad and Tobago. We've heard nothing about diversification of the economy after the closure of Petrotrin, although that was promised. We are now living in a time where we faced the COVID-19 pandemic. The government had a much vaunted COVID-19 recovery plan team, which they put together, and they had this big thing, this hullabaloo about all these great businessmen and business minds and economists who are on this team. What have we heard from them in terms of the plans for Trinidad and Tobago post-COVID-19? Absolutely nothing. They've had no plan for the last 5 years. They've had no plan post-COVID-19. Seriously, we cannot expect the PNM to have any plan for 2020 onwards. And that is why they have been campaigning by distraction. They cannot put up a plan. They cannot argue a plan. They cannot convince the people of any plan for the future of the country because they have no foundation. They've done nothing for the last 5 years. All we've heard is excuses, are excuses. So, for example, the most common excuse that we've been hearing since 2015, every time the Minister of Finance has gotten up in Parliament to deliver a budget presentation, the UNC left the Treasury empty. That's what they say. The UNC emptied the coffers of the Treasury. That's not so, Again, I've done some research on it. And when you look at it, in the last 5 years, from 2015 onwards, the single largest time that this country has seen revenue in excess of $6 billion was actually in 2015 when the People's Partnership demitted office. So in 2015, the revenue coming into the country as at the end of that fiscal period when the UNC left office was $60 billion. Since then, the mark has been hovering and struggling to hover around the 50 billion mark. So don't buy the foolishness and the stupid talk, the old talk about the UNC leaving the Treasury empty. They got $60 billion in revenue that year. They've done nothing for the last 5 years. They will do nothing for the next 5 years. The campaign team for the UNC in 2020 for the 2025 period is now is the time, and it's important. And a lot of the speakers before me spoke about it as well. This is not just about us sitting here. I see young people. I see Nicholas is a young person like myself, or a younger person like myself, but we have a lot of the older heads here as well. This is not just about us, This is about the future generations. what legacy we are going to leave for our children and our grandchildren. I have a 4-year-old son. Dr. Munilal has a young son. A lot of you have children and grandchildren. What is the future for Trinidad and Tobago if we remain under the PNM regime? Again, there is no future. In the last couple of years, the number of persons who have literally fled Trinidad and Tobago because of crime, because of unemployment, because of just general lack of economic activity and opportunity, it's astounding. We need on August 10th to send a message to the PNM and to the people of Trinidad and Tobago as a whole that we are not taking that anymore. This government has done nothing. This election is for us to ensure that our children have something to look forward to. And it's important. Now, listen, we're in the fortress of Oropouche East. I don't need Dr. Munilal could do nothing and win this seat, I'm sure. But he's here because you all are important to him. You all in Oropouche East, we must send a strong message. We must not only win the majority of seats come October 10th, we must win the popular vote. We must send a strong message to the PNM that we are not tolerating, right, their tyrannical ways, their tyrannical regime anymore. And apart from that, we are sitting here on the boundary of two other marginal constituencies, and other speakers would have spoken about that. We have Maruga Tableland, we have Sandu West, and we are putting up extremely strong fights in both constituencies, and we have to keep that momentum going. So now is the time not only for Oropouche East, but we have to spread the word, we have to encourage our friends, we have to encourage our family, we have to get people out to vote. All right? We cannot depend on, just going about our business and hoping that the other constituencies come out to vote. We need to be active. All right? Now, we live, as a lawyer, I'm part of the UNC's legal team overseeing the campaign as well. And we've been working actively with the EBC to treat with a lot of issues over the COVID-19. And I think it's important that everyone gets out there early to vote on August 10th as well, all right? Because, with the social distancing, the number of persons who could come out at a certain time, who could enter the facility and so on, we need to ensure that we get everyone out to vote. So, in closing, now is the time. We have the Lion of Oropouche here. He has been a man of the people. And, at a prior meeting some days ago, someone said, he's someone who can drink and lime and have a good time and converse with the common man and with kings and presidents and so on. He's a man, a true man of the people. He's a man for all seasons. And we need here in Oropouche to come out and support our MP, our roaring lion. And now, when I was thinking about what I would say tonight, Basdev Pandey, the founding father of our party, once said, the quote was that if you saw me and a lion fighting, feel sorry for the lion. When he said that, Dr. Munilal was with him, in Parliament and in those days. I'm certain when he said that, he was thanking God he never had to fight a fight with the roaring lion of Oropouche. All right? So, in closing, everybody, we need to come out, support. We need to get everyone going. Now is the time. Now is the time for us to rescue our country. Now is the time to return the United National Congress to government. Now is the time for all of us and for all our brothers and sisters and family who have fled and are living abroad and so on to return home to Trinidad and Tobago, where we could all live happily and peacefully and live a prosperous life again. All right, so on August 10th, everyone will come out to vote Dr. Munilal, and we're all coming out to support Kamla Prasad Bisesa as the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you very much.
Now is the time for man who stood the test of time. Now is the time for the man and the people of Oropouche.
And that is the caliber of people we have speaking pro-UNC. Because these are the people who believes in the UNC and understands that the UNC is right for government. We are not the right choice, we are the best choice. We are the only choice. And now is the time for everybody. We talk about the marginal constituencies. Oropouche East, we share that energy because we are booming with energy in Oropouche East. So we can share that energy in Maruga Tableland and San Fernando West and build that momentum. Because on August 10th, those marginal seats, that is what is going to bring us victory. $30 billion, right? 1.4 million people in Trinidad. That equates to $214,000, $214,000 thereabout. Have any of us felt that tangibly or intangibly over the last 5 years? No, the answer is a resounding no. Even if you're thinking about it, not a single person has felt that in the last 5 years. I remember when I just became a councillor, and each councillor is entitled to an office staff, one office staff, and they're entitled to $3,000 a month, right? I posted it on social media, asking people to submit their resume and stuff. Now, $3,000, if you do the math, that's below minimum wage. And I received 180 applications. And at least 60 of them were university graduates. They were willing to work for below minimum wage just to have a job. That is not right. And now is the time to vote them out. It was a UNC government that increased accessibility to potable water supply from 18% in 2010 to 70% in 2015. And over the last 5 years, our people have suffered for a service which they pay for. Almost 500 homes in my district and thousands more went without a drop of water for over 20 days during the peak of COVID-19. And what did Field Harold Hines say? Yes, I called him right, Field Harold. Because he's a failure. He said we exaggerated. But I say tonight, now is the time to vote them out. Now is the time to vote out those failures. And now is the time where I'm going to introduce Dr. Tim Gopi Singh, who is our next speaker. He's a medical practitioner and has worked extensively in the field of medicine in Trinidad and Tobago and internationally over the last 40 years. He has made significant contributions in shaping our health sector while he served as clinical dean of the Faculty of Medical Sciences from 1994 to 1997. He has served diligently as a member of Parliament of Caroni East since 2007. Dr. Gopi Singh obtained an executive MBA from the Arthur Lockjack Graduate School of Business and a Master's in International Relations with distinction from the University of West Indies. He also represented Trinidad and Tobago in cricket at an international level. That is a candidate. That is the quality of our UNC people. This is a man who executed the will of Mrs. Prasad Bisasa, where every Form 1 student benefited from a laptop, where Trinidad and Tobago became the first country in the world to achieve universal early childhood education. 106 schools built between 2010 and 2015 under his watch as Minister of Education. When Dr. Gopi Singh stood in Parliament to defend the track record of the People's Partnership, listing all of the 106 schools, he left the PNM speechless. Dr. Gopi Singh will not be contesting the 2020 general elections, but his role in politics is far from over. He is a strategic advisor and mobilizer in the upcoming elections. He said one of the founding principles of the UNC is that of national and human capital development and progress for the future, for the present and future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you all to put our hands together and welcome Dr. Tim Gopi Singh.
Now is the time for man who stood the test of time. Now is the time for the man and the people of Oropouche.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. After that introduction, I probably can sit. But thank you. Sometimes you wonder if half of these things are true. My distinguished friend, a younger brother, I consider him a close member of my family, a strategist for the United National Congress, the Lion of Parliament between 2015 and 2020, Dr. the Honorable Roodal Munilal. Let's give him a round of applause tonight. All the residents here in Barrackpore and their environs, at this family home for this Cottage meeting, and the thousands listening on the 3 radio stations, 91.9, Radio Jagriti, and of course, viewing on Ian Alleyne's live production on the World Wide Web, and of course viewing on Radio Jagriti, on TV Jagriti, and viewing those in Miami, Toronto, and even some might be up still in London, and of course the United States. Good evening to each and every one of you. I have come here not to really ask your support, because I know your support is here for your candidate already. But we need to give an overwhelming victory for his candidacy for the Oropouche East constituency. And I'm sure that you will multiply your support thousandfolds to ensure that victory comes to him within the first 2 hours or the first hour of August 10th, when the election is held. Last night I spoke with the honorable political leader and some of my colleagues on the platform on the laptop issue in the education sector. Tonight I want to speak with you and converse with you about the health sector. Permit me to, first of all, go into the area where we are now, nearly 58 months after the election of September 2015. Just another month and a half to go when 60 months would have been up. And within the last 5 months, we were engaged in the coronavirus COVID-19 issue, and we were protecting ourselves and our families from this deadly disease. But I want to take you back before these 5 months. So we have 53 months to talk to you about what was going on in the health sector for 53 months. And Terrible Terry and the People's National Movement and Prime Minister Rowley must hold their heads in shame of the performance in the health sector over these 53 months and even these last 5 months during this COVID virus issue. Take yourselves back when you and your family went to the emergency departments of San Fernando Hospital, Mount Hope Hospital, and from the National Population Port of Spain General Hospital. When there was overcrowding and people were lining up on trolleys, hundreds were lining up on trolleys, waiting to get an X-ray, waiting to get a CT scan, waiting to get your blood tests, and waiting for a bed for 2 to 3 days. Some members of your family died while on trolleys, waiting for attention, not having seen a doctor for 24 hours. Yeah. This is what was happening. We must not forget that, and don't let them fool you and tell you that they have managed the COVID virus issue. I say it has been managed very badly and poorly. They have fooled the people and they have lied to the people over these last 5 months. And Rowley and Terrible Terry have come onto the TV using state resources on a daily basis, using your taxpayers' money to have a political campaign on a daily basis so that they can continue to fool the people. But you are not fooled. You will not be fooled because you are smarter than them. You are smarter than them. So while you're lining up on trolleys at the hospital, you have a hospital, a newly built hospital, the Couva Children's Hospital, built under UDCOT by Dr. Roodal, Munilal, and Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa and Minister Fuad Khan. And they had that hospital closed. And because of spite and vindictiveness and viciousness, they never wanted to open it. Just like they don't want to open the South Campus, just like they don't want to construct any of the 72 schools that we had under construction. Anything that UNC had to deal with, they did not want to open. So they suffered our people in Trinidad and Tobago while a state-of-the-art hospital in Cuba laid closed. And they lied to you and told you that there were not enough doctors and nurses to run the hospital. When there were over 300 doctors unable to get a job and more than 1,000 nurses waiting for a job so they could have filled the hospital with nurses and doctors. But they chose to suffer our people. But we must now suffer them, and they must not see victory again at any time. We must vote them out for these 5 years, and another 5 years, and another 5 years. The PNM must be buried once and for all. And our United National Congress, 32 years young, will grow to 50 years and 100 years. And Mrs. Bissessa will carry us along. And Dr. Roodal, Munilal, and the younger ones will take us through. I gave up the electoral part of politics to ensure that the younger ones play an active role in decision making. And they're brilliant, and they're bright, and they're dynamic and hardworking. And it was my honor and a privilege to do that and to give way. I am in my senior years of my life, but I still believe that I have a lot to offer this country in areas of health and education and finance and so on. But that will be seen later on. So while this is going on, hospitals are running short. One CT machine to service the entire country of all the hospitals in Trinidad and Tobago. The CDAP drugs were running short in the pharmacies. Patients were not getting pharmaceuticals in the hospital. They did not have reagents to do the blood tests. Many of you will testify to that you had to take the blood samples from the hospital, carry it to private labs to have the blood test done. By the time you get back the blood test, your family dead. This is what was happening. There are thousands and thousands of patients waiting for surgery, elective surgery. Emergency surgery were not being done with the rapidity which they're supposed to be done because the hospitals were short of doctors and nurses. So it was a calamity with the health sector. They were short of medical supplies so that when surgeons have to do the operations, they couldn't get the hip prosthesis, the knee implantation type of apparatus, or the brain aneurysm clips and so on. All of these were in short supplies because they failed to pay the suppliers. And they cannot make any excuse that they did not have money, because you heard tonight on the platform, I have the figures here with me, they spent over $289 billion in the 5 years. So they had the money. We left $117 billion for them in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and the Foreign Reserve. And they always want to tell you that they do not have money. But let me come back to the health sector. So we had long waiting lists for people waiting for surgery. People were getting appointments for 2 years down the line to have their cataract operations. Then you had people waiting for cardiac surgery, heart surgery, angioplasty, angiography. People were dying while waiting for the surgery. What a shame and a disgrace. They stopped the extended surgical programs during the period of time so that nobody was able to go outside of the hospital system to get their surgery. There were blackouts of the hospital. The electricity at San Fernando Hospital blacked out. You can imagine somebody operating in the operating theater. You get a blackout. The lights go off. You have to scramble. You as a surgeon, well, you have to make sure that you put a hand on the abdomen or the chest or the pelvic and stop any bleeding that might be taking place while you're hoping and praying that the electricity will come back. Or a patient on the ventilator, and the ventilator is working, as you see internationally, working with electricity, and all of a sudden the electricity gone. The nurses will now have to come and pump. That was the state of the hospital system. That is still the state of the hospital system. The mortuaries were overflowing. Bodies were rotting in the mortuaries at the hospitals. This is just a snippet. This is just a snippet. The roofs were falling in. When the rain fell, the roofs fell in. The National Oncology Center was scrapped. You could imagine there are almost 3,000 patients on an annual basis who develop either early or late type of cancer. We have over 1,200 people dying annually from cancer. But we could save 50% of the cancer patients once you have the right system. The chemotherapy drugs were missing. They had none, very little of the chemotherapy drugs. They had Z-class chemotherapeutic agents. So when a patient needed the best chemotherapy drugs to stop the cancer from spreading, they had the worst. And then they couldn't get the second treatment or they couldn't get the third treatment. By that time, the cancer cells are multiplying and the patients die within a short period of time. That is the state that terrible Terry and Rowley and his government took Trinidad and Tobago in the health sector. We had built about 67, constructed over 67 health centers and repaired these health centers. Because Mrs. Bissessa, as Prime Minister, her vision was to make primary health care a most effective and efficient aspect of the healthcare system. So people with diabetes, hypertension, people who have to be screened for cancer, whether prostate or whether it's breast cancer or cervical cancer, the screening program could be going on very rapidly. So 67 health centers built and repaired by CPEP and by URP. When they came into office, they refused to pay these people who did the construction. So we had opened these health centers up to 9 in the evening and on weekends and public holidays up to 4. But as soon as they came in, they closed the health centers back to 4 p.m. So you can imagine that when you all were coming from work, you could get your treatment done. You could have your blood sugar tested. You could have your blood pressure tested. And there were doctors and nurses and attendant staff. Some of the health centers had laboratories to give you blood tests and x-rays as well and ECG. And all of that had been reversed. Then they came and they closed down the Augustus Lung Hospital, where thousands and thousands of Petrotrin employees had health care after they had retired. My friend Anand Chattergoon, who was medical director for San Fernando Hospital for years, told me recently, the emergency departments at San Fernando Hospital are overflowing again, continue to overflow. More than 300 patients per day because part of it has been the closure of the San Fernando of the Augustus Lung Hospital. And what has happened to the 500 or 600 doctors waiting for jobs and the thousands of nurses still waiting for jobs in the country? We have 4 regional health authorities in Trinidad. Each one of the regional health authorities could take 150 doctors. There are about 30 plus disciplines in the health sector: orthopedics, neurosurgery, medicine, a whole heap, dermatology, whatever. About 30 different centers. You put 5 in each one of these areas, it wouldn't still make any difference. And how much will it cost you? About $100 million per year to employ these doctors full-time. What about the nurses? 1,500 nurses you need. They are short-staffed in all the regional health authorities, but they do not want to pay. They do not want to employ them. They curtail the amount of training for nurses in the Tacarigua center, where Mrs. Bissessa ensured with Minister Karim to have the Tacarigua Tacarigua Center for Training of Nurses widened. We could train nurses to go internationally as well, and nurse internationally in the USA and so on, make close to 100,000 US per year, but they have to work a little harder. So, my friends, ladies and gentlemen, I have about 15 pages of achievements in the health sector under the watch of Mrs. Bissessa. And here it is, achievements of health. And how much pages I have here? 8 pages, double. And these are all achievements of the Ministry of Health. Under Kamla Prasad Bissessa, Minister Fuad Khan, his team, and supported by UDCOT in the construction under Dr. Munilal. So, Prime Minister Manning, Prime Minister Eric Williams, when he was Prime Minister, he promised to have Point Fortin Hospital constructed. He didn't do it. Manning came in 2002, he promised to construct the Point Fortin Hospital. 2010 gone. It took Kamla Prasad Bissessa and UDCOT with Julian and Dr. Munilal as the minister under UDCOT to start the Point Fortin Hospital in 2015. Today, that would have been finished in 2017. Today, 5 years later, it's still not completed. They say they completed, but they can't open it because they don't know how to open it. They boast about constructing the Arima Hospital, but UDCOT under Mrs. Bissessar laid the foundation and started the construction of the Arima Hospital. We converted the Chancery Lane Administrative Complex to the San Fernando Teaching Hospital to take the burden of the hospital of San Fernando. So these are just snippets that I brought to you tonight within my short period of time. But I do not want to close without giving you some idea of the financial aspect of Trinidad and Tobago. A short one. So they came in and they said the country was running on fumes. And they didn't have money. They lied to the population. Because we had left $117 billion TT in the Heritage and Stabilization Fund and the Foreign Reserve. The Heritage and Stabilization Fund had 5.6 billion US. Mrs. Bissessar's administration carried it from 3.5 billion to 5.6, nearly 15, 16 billion TT more. We had 11.5 billion US in foreign reserve. So when they come to the people and say, we left nothing for them, the country was running on fumes, tell them they lie, and they continue to lie. It's the most lying and corrupt government that this country has ever seen in its history. PNM invented corruption, they masterminded corruption, and they perfected corruption. And this Rowley administration has been the most corrupt government this country has ever seen. We have 2 pages of corrupt issues that we can bring to you. Not least of all is the 100 million fake oil issue, which they closed down Petrotrin because they don't want you to have any knowledge or any paperwork on the Petrotrin, on the fake oil. $400 million Manzolina Highway, what happened to that? Was there any tendering? $485 million for the President's house, show us the tendering for that. Nearly $500 million for the Red House, show us the tendering. The Diego Martin Sporting Complex, over $150 million, show us the tender. They want to construct a primary school in Tobago for $83 million, a primary school. We in Trinidad and Tobago, under Mrs. Bissessar, the largest amount of money we spent on any primary school to hold 600 students was less than $33 million. Where does $83 million come from? So this is just a little bit of the widespread corruption. So in terms of their expenditure, in 2016 they spent $58 billion. 2017, 56.3. 2018, 56.1 billion. 2019, 56.2. And in 2020, we estimate that the expenditure will be $60.7 billion. You know how much that comes up to? $287 billion. That's facts. That came from the book. The UNC under Mrs. Bissessar, our spending was 58 billion, 59 billion, 64 billion, 68 billion, 64 billion. We spent during that time 296 billion, and they spent 278 billion, 18 billion more. But we have things to show. We have 9 police stations constructed under Dr. Munilal. We have 106 schools, the highways, fire stations, a whole heap that you could talk about. You will get tired speaking about it. And you know what has gone on before? I have a list here of loans and HSF drawdowns, October 2015 to May 2020. And look at the list. Republic Bank, 2 billion. Roadshow, July 16, 1 billion US, that's 6.7 billion. 1 billion, 1.35 billion, etc. Then another 1.3 of Petrotrin short-term loan, and so on. And it goes on. The total borrowing so far by this government in the 5 years has been a staggering over $52 billion. So besides spending the amount of money, they have thrown this country to $52.3 billion debt. Yeah? $52.3 billion. And these are figures coming from the central bank bulletin. So, ladies and gentlemen, my distinguished viewing and listening audience, 15 minutes is a little time to speak about what is really and what has been happening in Trinidad and Tobago. But tonight, you have a candidate who I had the privilege and pleasure of meeting and knowing for 22 years. I probably met him before, but I met him in 1998. When Mr. Pandey brought him in, he had just come back from The Hague, the university in Holland, as having received his PhD magna cum laude. He was the first student at The Hague University in 1998 to receive his PhD magna cum laude. And it was really a privilege for me, who had been in medicine all my life and so on, to become associated. Mr. Pandey introduced me to him, and he came to the Red House. And Dr. Munilal began to work from the Prime Minister's office. And he continued to serve in Parliament for the last 20 years. Alongside Mrs. Bisesa, who has been there for more than 25 years, she has given her whole life to politics from since 1991. How much is that? 29 years, yeah? And look at the strength and the tenacity and the brilliance of the political leader, and soon to be your Prime Minister for a second term. So tonight, you have the roaring lion. I have seen him at work in Parliament. I have a great deal of respect for his brilliance in terms of how he engages the parliamentary discussion. And he could take you down a road for more than an hour, and he will make you understand what the true issue is, with some humor. But over the last 5 years, they're gunning for all of us. They say, all are we corrupt. Munilal, Gopi Singh, Rambachan, X and Y, and 5 years. Stuart Young and his whole team. And they employ some of the biggest type of investigators sitting upstairs of us in Parliament building when we were in the other place up to recent. Make them police officers investigating. And Stuart Young saying every day, X and Y, and not one has been touched. Not one of us has been touched. And you know who has been touched? Well, my good friend, Marlene MacDonald. She's a nice lady. But a lot of them have things to explain. So in that context, I was telling you about the fight of Dr. Munilal. He, and with a little support from all of us, took on the might of the PNM. They're afraid of him. They're afraid of Mrs. Bisesa because she's very brilliant, very brilliant. When she speaks, you could see the brilliance. I've often told her so. That is the lady that is going to be your next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago with your support. Your next candidate, your next MP for Oropouche is going to be Dr. Munilal. So when August 10th comes out, go in there very early and cast your vote for Dr. Munilal and cast your vote for the United National Congress and the Rising Sun. Long live my young brother, Dr. Munilal. Long live Kamla Prasad Bisesa. And long live the United National Congress. And where we go from success to success. Thank you very much.
Let's give Dr. Tim Gopi Singh a true Oropouche East. Thank you. Very articulate indeed. Since 2002, Dr. Roodal Munilal has been the Member of Parliament for Oropouche East, which became, he's a Member of Parliament for Oropouche, which then became known as Oropouche East in 2007. And he has served 4 consecutive terms and made significant contributions to the cultural, social, economic and infrastructural development of the constituency. Dr. Munilal has grown to be synonymous with the constituency, and it has been the single consistent highlight of his prolific political career. Simultaneously, he has made significant contributions to our national development. Every aspect of livelihood was improved through proper and effective representation by Dr. Roodal Munilal. You know, we often refer to him as the Lion of Oropouche East, and the lion he is, but he is also a very humble, kind, gentle servant of the people. His compassion and love for his constituents is quite admirable. Oropouche East is not a safe seat. Oropouche East is a fortress, because the people of Oropouche East are responsible, right-thinking citizens. They understand that this election, like every election, is critical to their children's future. They are confident that Dr. Roodal Munilal will return as their Member of Parliament for Oropouche East, and they are confident that Mrs. Prasad Visasa will return as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, and then they'll be guaranteed that their future will be in good hands. You know, Michael said earlier, Pandey said if he was fighting a lion, I feel sorry for the lion. But Kimraj just told me, in 2020, the lion is fighting for us, so let's feel sorry for the PNM. And I dare say that Oropouche East is Munilal, and Munilal is Oropouche East. So with that in mind, let's put our hands together and welcome Dr. Roodal Munilal, our next MP for Oropouche East.
Welcome the lion, the royal lion. Sing, Munilal a lion. He's a champion. He's a lion. He's a champion. Welcome the lion. He's a the royal lion. Sing, Munilal a lion. He's a champion. He's a lion. He's a champion. Royal lion. He's a champion. Experience for the education. Munilal a lion. He's a champion. He's a lion. He's a champion. Royal lion. He's a champion. Experience for the education. A man with the passion and courage. The PNM fear. The people them love.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, brothers and sisters, all. There was a time quite recently when a speaker goes to the platform, he or she would declare, "Wow, look at people." If you do that now, you break the law. But it's a pleasure to see so much of you legally here tonight in this beautiful hall, in a private residence and not in a public space. So I'm setting up the case, Council. In a private space, in a private residence, to see you here separated, socially distanced, of course, and with such beautiful and wonderful yellow mask. I can even see the smile through that mask. I want to greet our great brother and great friend, Dr. Tim Dhanraj Gopi Singh, former Minister of Education, expert and professional in the health service for over 50 years, national cricketer, cultural ambassador, philanthropist, partner, and great friend and buddy to myself, and a great supporter of the constituency of Oropouche East. We have our young brother, Attorney at Law, Mr. Michael Ruplal, President of the Southern Lawyers Association, from a very prominent family in these parts and a very, very proud son of the soil. We have the campaign manager emeritus, the very distinguished Premchand Dok Suku, former chairman of the County Council. Councillors, of course, Kimmy, Brian, Nicholas. Anybody I miss? We have cultural icon who spoke earlier, and I know he's a great singer, but today I was telling Charmaine he's a good speaker. Jairaj Singh, who blessed us this evening with his presence and endorsed my candidacy. So many of you assembled, the chairman of the Oropouche East constituency, members of the executive, members of staff, activists, and so on. We are live, I believe, on Jagriti TV, Jagriti Radio, 91.9 FM, on our own Roodal Munilal Facebook, and on Ian Alleyne Network. So enough people hearing us. So tonight, as Michael told you, this is not a lime. This is not Dr. Rowley having his lime. This is serious business. Because we are at a defining moment in our country's history. So what we do tonight is serious. This is not the lime. And as Senator Anita Haynes remarked today, she told Rowley, she said after August 10th, you will have a lot of time to lime. and play golf. And when Tim was delivering his speech here, Tim asked me, how much time to take? I said, Tim, talk until you fall down. Such is the encyclopedic mind, such is the gravitas, such is the enormity of his knowledge. I said, Tim, talk. But I forgot it was only a month or two that Tim had knee surgery. So we had to tell him, Tim, tonight we have discovered that he's back. He is fit for purpose and ready to serve the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, brothers and sisters all, a few matters to raise with you tonight. But to begin by telling you that 2015, we had a democratic disaster. And between 2015 and 2020, these can be considered the lost years of development of Trinidad and Tobago. They are lost years. Those years will never come back again. They are lost. Businesses have collapsed. Over 60,000 people have lost their jobs. Citizens of this country, before COVID, were in a state of distress. This is a country where it is a burden to live. You go to the hospital, you cannot get a bed. You go to the school, your children cannot get their books. They cannot get their meals. If you are a public servant and you're in the Ministry of Information, they tell you bring your own water and your own equipment for the toilet. This is Trinidad and Tobago. We had become, until today, we have become an international embarrassment. There's a fellow by the name of Dennis Moses. Look, he could be here in Barrack 1. We don't know what he looked like. He's the Minister of Foreign Affairs. He could be here. I hope he's not here. He has been an international embarrassment. Mr. Stuart Young and others, traveling the whole world, have embarrassed us. And this country could never have been in greater the depth of distress, economic collapse, political turmoil than we find ourselves in today. When Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa demitted office in September 2015, Trinidad and Tobago was a paradise. You had your jobs, you had your food card, you had, brothers and sisters, a place in the hospital if you happened, God forbid, to go there. You had a bed. We had completed the children's hospital. We had completed the teaching hospital. We started the Point Fortin hospital. We started the Arima hospital. When they came into office, I knew from within weeks that they would do nothing. I knew it. Not because of my political instinct. When they came in, they started to complain that we hired ghost workers in ministries and so on. 5 years later, they find any ghosts? Not one ghost. When we asked them, why don't you concentrate on the work of the country, delivering goods and services? You know, they were concerned with ghost workers. How much people Ram Logan hire? How much Munilal hire? That's what they were concerned with. Rowley, gone to Tobago. He calling my name in Tobago. The UNC don't even have a candidate there. I am the news in Tobago, reading newspaper and so on. That fella cannot make a political speech without calling my name. You ought to watch before he take out a protection order against me. The fella goes and he reads some of the newspaper, man, because you see, Michael said it, and I will just develop that. This is a government that has nothing to show. They have no roads. Brothers and sisters, when a government comes to the end of its term, Tim was there, I was there, some of you were there, the ministers would trip over themselves because all of us want to get a chance to talk, to tell you about the great work we did. Housing want to talk, man. Education want to talk. Health want to talk. Foreign affairs want to talk. Everybody want to talk because they want to tell you all the work that they have done. This is a government, brothers and sisters. They cannot tell you which road they pave. They cannot tell you which communities got water. They cannot tell you which communities got their grounds, recreation grounds lit. They cannot tell you how much new businesses they create. They cannot tell you how much jobs they create. They cannot tell you nothing of achievement. So they're carrying out now what is called a back in times campaign. It is back in times. They blame Kamla, the UNC, Pusungi. They blame everybody for everything under the sun for their failure. You know this song, Who to Blame? So they blame everyone for their incompetence and their failure because they have nothing to show. So they come now with the same song, you know, since they came into power, they cannot tell you anything they do. They milk this corruption issue. But Jairaj, that is trying to milk a bull. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to milk a bull. The people in Barakpur will understand that, and I'm sure others. That is what they're doing. So they come now and they say, report, report, people get in charge, lock up and so on. I want to tell Rowley tonight, stop talking about who get in charge and lock up. You are traumatizing the police service. They are embarrassing the police who know nothing about that. They are traumatizing and embarrassing the TTPS when you spread rumors like that because the police don't know nothing about that. They must stop that and cut it out. Because I want to tell you something, 1 year come and go on, 2 year come and go on, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, and nobody in this country again arrested for nothing. No again charged for nothing. In fact, in that EMBDC matter, live sport, I can tell you, and I could tell you with confidence, neither myself or Anil Roberts or any UNC minister has not even been questioned on any wrongdoing when we were government minister. Forget anything, they didn't question me. Anytime the police come by me, it's to find out where PNM fella living. Anytime they ask me, they come by me, it's to find out where that PNM fella living. The police are not interested in that, and they are becoming embarrassed now by the Prime Minister and others when they raise these issues. What did they do? They hired a team from England, brothers and sisters, bring them down here, pay them millions of pounds. So fellas in England now, they retire, policemen retire and so on, they get in a pension, they see a chance to come down Maracas, Pigeon Point, collect some money to add on to their gratuity, they walk in. Their contract ends at the end of July. So they leak reports to the PNM now, they leak reports to say, look, we walk in man, things coming along. When you read that Sunday Guardian paper, which you read in Tobago, Mr. Roodal, other lawyers will understand, they say evidence requires development. That's an English way to say we don't have a damn thing. But they can't say it like we know. So evidence requires development. Tell them stay in London and develop the evidence by themselves and stop taking taxpayers' money. That is the point. Don't squander it. So today, they have nothing. They want their contracts renewed, they have nothing. And they come with all of this corruption thing and so on, and Rowley talking about that as if that is something new. That is nothing new. 4 or 5 years, they come in with the same thing. Anil Roberts' mouth is still the same size. They were not able to close him. Roodal Munilal still talking. They're not able to silence him. And these people, I want to remind you, this is a night. Now is the time to remind you. Now is the time to remind you that when I went in opposition, CPEP sued me. Tried to silence me with an injunction. My whole life in Parliament against this Rowley administration has been a struggle just to speak. They tried to silence me in Parliament. When you are a supporter of mine in this constituency, you need to get little shirt and tie and thing because any Monday morning you could be going to court. You could be asked to come to court, go to Parliament, because they have attacked me. But brothers and sisters, they target me because I target them. That is why they target me. Because I target them. Because I was the one who brought the information on several matters involving corruption to the fore in the Parliament and outside. So that is why they want to silence us. But I want to tell you something. The African proverb, the lion doesn't turn around when a little dog barks. And as I was reminded, when a lion take one step back, it's because he wants to measure you, to jump. The lion don't retreat. Lion don't retreat. They must understand that. You don't retreat. You can't silence us. You cannot intimidate. You cannot harass. We will speak out. And I will speak out until Keith Rowley demit office on August 10th, 2020, and Mrs. Kamla Prasad Bisesa is installed as Prime Minister. So brothers and sisters, they come with this corruption thing, we dismiss that. We dismiss that. And we ask them to ensure that they, millions of pounds paid to this British team. Policemen talk to me all the time because we support the TTPS all the time. Policemen complain that when they go to the doctor and they do dental on the teeth, optical, eye, and they go to the police now to get their voucher to pay doctor for their treatment, the police administration building tell them, we haven't received money from finance. We don't have money to pay you. Policeman could get blind, but they could lose the teeth. And the government cannot put money for them in the vote to pay for that, but paying British people to come down here. And after 5 years, they're on a witch hunt. They don't have any witch. And if they want a wild goose chase, they couldn't even catch a tame goose. But you cannot provide Trinidad and Tobago police officers with a little voucher to claim how much? $1,000 for optical, and I think $300 or something for dental. A few $100 you cannot give police officers. When officers work and they put in what is called overtime, they cannot get their payment, and certainly not in a timely manner, because the Ministry of Finance takes that money to pay British policemen, not Trinidad and Tobago policemen. Over $200 million have gone. When in Parliament on May 25th, 2018, we filed a question for written answer, you know, the Attorney General stand up, and unbelievable lawyers and senior counsels look at that and they say, unbelievable. He said, if we tell you how much money we spend, that will prejudice the case. An amazing statement. But let me tell them something. Now is the time. There's a reason Rowley don't want us to get back there. He don't want us to get back in power. He will do everything. I hope he are watching Granger too much in Guyana. Over there, a fellow win the election 6 times already and he can't take the vote as president. About 6 times he win already. I want to tell Rowley tonight, there is reason to be scared of us, because we will get inside it and quickly unearth the corruption in AV drilling and the fake oil. We will get in there and find the corruption with payment for legal fees and professional fees to their friends and family. Look, I have a document in front of me. A government minister, man, sister-in-law working as advisor in a ministry office. If that happened under the UNC, you lost your neck. The kind of corruption they are doing in government under Kamla Prasad Bisasa, you lose your neck. You got to go and get an elephant and switch the neck. And you really have to get an elephant and put on. That you cannot do that. The kind of things they are engaged in. And they are scared of us, brothers and sisters. They are scared we come back there. Look at what has happened in the economy. I can tell you, Petrotring workers, 60,000, Point Lisa's plant, everybody gone home. I was in a restaurant a few days ago. A gentleman came up to me. He looked at me, he said, you are Dr. Munilal? I say, yes. And when you're wearing yellow like me, you could say proudly, you are UNC. Proudly. I was in my yellow shirt. He said, I want you to make a promise. I said, brother, I don't know what promise I could make to you. He said, promise me and I'm not leaving here unless you promise me. I said, what? He said, promise me or you're moving Keith Rowley on the August 10th, 2020. Promise me. I said, my friend, with your help, by the will of God and the help of the people, we will remove Keith Rowley as Prime Minister. And he tells me, he said, I want to tell you something. I am one of the persons. When they closed Petrotrin, I had to look at my wife in her eyes. I looked at my young children on Monday morning. I looked to them. I went inside, changed my clothes, take a shower. I saw them sitting on the sofa, and I picked up the keys to my house. And I went to the bank to give them back the keys to my house, having looked at his young children in their eyes. He said, you think I could vote for the man who sent me home? He said people in Petrotrin had to return keys to the bank. They had to find their in-laws and outlaws and say, could we get a little place in your house? Could we fix up a place to bring 3 children, the wife and the husband, because you cannot pay your mortgage and you don't want an embarrassment where marshal come to your house and they embarrass you in front of your children and your neighbors and so on. That is the reality of this country. Today, on the eve of an election, hours before a general election, Keith Rowley intends, brothers and sisters, to go and sell off the refinery at Pointe-à-Pierre. Tonight, I call on Keith Rowley from Barrackpore which is also the community of oil workers. I call upon him, take your paws off the refinery. Take your paws off the refinery. The refinery belongs to all the people of Trinidad and Tobago at this moment. Do not sell it to private hands. Take your paws off. Dr. Rowley, if you want to sell something you own, sell that goat pen in Tobago. Sell your goat pen, you probably have a deed there. You don't have a deed with Petrotrin. Sell out some pen for goat in Tobago and leave the refinery alone. It is improper. It is unethical for Rowley to be selling away a refinery when Parliament has been dissolved. We cannot ask Prime Minister's questions. We cannot ask urgent questions. We cannot raise motions to discuss and debate. There is no opportunity for transparency and accountability at a time like this. The Parliament is dissolved. So brothers and sisters, no government, no leader must attempt to sell an asset that is 100 years old. To sell it, we must not allow Rowley to do that. The technical people will tell you, when Trinidad and Tobago, Petrotrin, Trintoc before and so on, they are an integrated oil producer. We are integrated. So Milton is here, a man most experienced in these things. Research and marketing is linked to exploration and production. When you sell away a refinery, you delink and detach. And that is almost impossible to survive by itself without those linkages. So under Patrick Manning, Basdev Pandey, Kamla Prasad Bisesa, we had an integrated production system. Today they want to get rid of one thing. People forget between 2010 to 2015, Petrotrin sent to the government over $20 billion in royalty, taxes, and other payments. $20 billion. The refinery was always productive and efficient. Manning government and Mrs. Prasad Bisesa governments invested millions of dollars in state-of-the-art equipment for that refinery. All type of equipment and so on, and labs they invested in. When they came and closed it down, that refinery is running down now. Millions of taxpayers' dollars have to be spent to start it back up. I told you before, that is not a kettle where you go in the kitchen and 3 days later you plug it on. That is a serious piece of industrial asset, technology-driven. And today, he is trying now to delink and disintegrate that system of production. Hours before a general election, Rowley, you must allow a new government of Kamla Prasad Bisesa to come in there, do an assessment, and determine the future. And ensure that we open the refinery under public watch, where the public owns the refinery. We may get private sector participation, that is the way of the world, but the people of Trinidad and Tobago must continue to own that critical, important asset, brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters, the refinery was an important matter. In the coming days, I wanted to tell you as well, you must be careful. They will come with all type of distractions, all type of issues and so on to take away. They have no plan. They have no vision. They have no strategy. They have no agenda. Mrs. Prasad Bisesa has an economic master plan. She's speaking about the creation of 50,000 new jobs. One of those jobs could be for you sitting here. But I want to tell you, the only way you could get your job is if Keith Rowley lost his job. If he don't lose his job, you cannot get any job. So you have to make sure 50,000 jobs to come, laptops to the children. We put laptop, Tim Gopi Singh and Mrs. Prasad Bisesa put laptops in the hands of the children. They put the laptop on the school list. And asked poor people to find $5,000 to buy a laptop. When they were embarrassed, they called quietly, they called pusur, and they say, take that off the book list. But God forbid, they come back into power, you will be asked to buy laptops for your children. They take it off. The Ramaitres Hindu School, 5 years. Anthony Garcia, when he was much younger 5 years ago, told me in Parliament, he said, I promise you that school will be finished. Today, Karaili Vine running on the school. Bush all outside there. They will not finish a school for your children. Reform has one. Princess Tong has one. I think Sawa has one. They will not finish the school, brothers and sisters. 70 schools left unfinished. So children in these areas, and you must understand the grief, children in these areas had to get up early in the morning, 4 o'clock in some cases, to travel way down to Rock Road to go to school. And when they are finished, they must travel back to Barrackpore and these areas. They are tired, they're in traffic, they are beaten by the time they come home. How could they do homework? They're tired. And there's another dimension to that people don't understand. For 5 years, that school has been in a temple. And we thank very much the temple, the management, the people there who have offered that school. But what it meant is that children who were not Hindus as well, because not every child would be a Hindu child, they had to change their diet for 5 years because they couldn't take certain things to school to eat, if that is their choice. So you have affected children's nutrition in some cases, their choice, you know, their parents' choice. You have brought a burden onto the children. And what type of government will suffer children? What? That is correct. That is correct, brother. PNM is the only government can suffer children in this country. Look what they have done in other places. When they were in opposition, some of you, the younger ones, will not know. There was a school called the Beach High School. 10 years they couldn't open the Beach High School. They said it have gas leaking there. What? Colm Imbert said, Dwen and Laga, who in the bush up by that school. Correct. When we built houses in the rural areas, Rowley said, what you building house there for in the bush? He said, build the house in the city. That is why it have water and electricity. I told him, but if you don't build the house there, you would never get water and electricity. When we came into power, I think among the first things Tim Gopi Singh did is Mrs. Prasad Bisesa instructed him, open the Beach High School. 10 years now, Beach High School there. They have anybody fall along with gas? Anybody fall along breathing in gas, inhaling gas? Anybody fall along there because of any chemicals? 10 years they deprived the people of Beach a high school. The hospital in Couva, look, it take a pandemic, it happens once every 100 years. It took a pandemic to open the Couva hospital. Otherwise, they would not have opened that. Dr. Roshan Parasram, the CMO, he's in an interview in the Trinidad Express. We have him in black and white. He said that when COVID came, we were very fortunate to have the Couva Children Hospital built by the former administration. If you notice what happened during COVID, and I don't want to talk too much about that tonight, they used all the facilities built by the partnership government were used for COVID victims quarantine. All. They use the Children's Hospital in Tanapuna. They use another facility, the tennis center. They call it racket because everything for them is racket. There's the tennis center. They use that. They use in Couva as well, a facility that we started. You know, 5 years in our own community, they cannot open the UE, DB campus. You know, when push come to shove, they see what? Water more than flour. They quickly go on and open that for victims as well, for patients. It could have opened all the time, but punish you, punish the people, punish the people. That is their slogan. Our slogan is now is the time to remove them. Now is the time to open the DB campus that will change the geography, that will change the economy, that will change the demographics of this part. DB and surrounding areas will emerge, you know, like Tanapuna, St. Augustine, a business hub. Because you will have students, you will have staff, administrative staff, academic staff, international staff coming here, and that will create economic spin-offs, industries. But the PNM doesn't want that. When we put the DB campus here, Rowley said that's a bad place to put a campus. All you remember that? That's what he said. So I said, so what happened? They're good for Polari and Sahina, but they're good for UE. It's not good for the campus. But that is how he operates. He didn't want it here. I reminded him that the PNM put the training college, teachers and UTT, right current, that's 5 minutes away. So current good for UTT, but they were not good for UE South Campus. Understand? So they are not people that you could vote for. They put up a candidate in this part here. I don't know what to say. Fella all around the place, and I don't think he own a long pants. Anyway, you see him. Today, somebody home burned down, so the boys said we must go and take a look and think. Before a hat drop, he reached on the scene. You couldn't see them in 5 years. But they're all over giving out hamper. And you know that hamper is a form of corruption. They take hamper paid for by the taxpayer and give P&M candidates to distribute. That is corruption. That is theft-free, because that is taxpayers' money. If you want hamper, go by the supermarket and ask the man to help you with some hamper. And they're so bold-faced. Charmaine will tell you, they're bold-faced. They call my office because they want to give us 50 hampers. So we said, no problem. That's taxpayers' hamper. We want that. They said, tell me something. We're trying to contact the P&M people and we can't find them. All you have a name and a number. Boy, if that didn't involve the law, I would have sent them by one of your house. But there's a law there. Imagine they call the UNC office to say they can't find the P&M lady. She named Cadet or something. I know the name because they asked me if we have a number for her now. Because they want to give her hampers too. They are bold-faced with their corruption. They're just bold-faced. And they will not stop until you remove them from power. Remove them from office. And that is what we are about tonight. Brothers and sisters, I know time is going and so on. But tonight I also want to indicate to you, be very conscious, be very vigilant in the next few days. And tonight we are on radio, we are on TV. I want to call on public officers in this country today. We are in a point of transition between one government and another. It's a very important point. The American political structure caters for this in law. You all follow American politics alone. Do you know, between an election in November and a swearing-in in January, the law comes in for transition? Trinidad and Tobago don't have that law. What we appeal to the public servants today is to exercise their professional conduct. Be extremely responsible. Be accountable. Do not fall victims today for doing the dirty work and the mischief of the outgoing Rowley administration. Because we are getting reports that senior public officers at this moment may be undertaking their dirty work for them. And I have one issue which I got information this week, and I can tell you without telling you too much that I have reported it to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service because I believe the public officer has breached the law. And that person is in the Ministry of National Security. And who is the minister? I will write him as well, because if he is connected to that, it speaks about an abuse of office and a breach of the Integrity in Public Life Act. So public officers, do not breach the law. Do not take basket from these ministers as they leave office, and do not breach your rules and regulations of the public service. Because what they are seeking for you to do is to abuse your office by checking documents and looking to do this and do this to undermine opposition MPs and the opposition. Rowley will not be there to save you if you breach any regulation and any laws of Trinidad and Tobago. And one matter we have, I say, we have in mind. So brothers and sisters, it is a time, now is the time to remind you as well that this government has not only discriminated against the people, not only neglected you. I mean, look at flooding. When you hear rain coming, people start to tremble. This is a country where when rain comes, you go for sandbag. You go for sandbag. We must end, and Mrs. Prasad Bisesa has outlined a plan to deal with flooding. It involves retention ponds, cleaning rivers, clearing rivers and drains, paving watercourses, creating new institutions to deal with flooding. The scientific community is today working with Mrs. Prasad Bisesa to come up with our plans and strategies to deal with flooding. But it begins with simple things, providing box drain, clearing river courses and so on. We have the plan for that. We cannot continue where 3 times a year it floods. Brothers and sisters, we cannot continue where 3 times a year you are in distress, bailing out water from under your house. This is a country where people now investing in water pump to bail out water from under their house. Could you imagine a country blessed with oil and gas and so on? This is where we reach in this country. In their 5 years, their money gone to pay off people for harassment claim. Their money gone to squander in all types of projects. Now is the time to remind you. You remember Rowley took millions of dollars to buy painting. To buy painting. And when he buy the painting, he tell you, you buy the laptop for your children, I will buy the painting. That is the callous and brutal nature. When we warned them about this COVID, they turned down Tim Gopi Singh and others in the parliament about 5 times. The last speaker was completely biased. Completely biased. A tool and a puppet of Rowley and the PNM. That is what she was. So much so that the executive in Oropouche passed a motion that she should resign forthwith. A complete disgrace for a speaker. And they turned down the motions to discuss COVID. When COVID came, you all remember when COVID came, they didn't have a mask to give you. They didn't have a drop of sanitizer. Kamla Prasad Bisesa was the first person in this country to manufacture and cause to be made 10,000 face masks to give out to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Remember that? You all remember the height of COVID? Donna Cox and Dial Singh got on TV. They say, listen, get a kerchief and ban your face and walk. Take a merino and cut it up and ban up your face if you're going outside. This is the country in the height of COVID. They tell you get a wash rag and tie your face. They couldn't make masks. It's we in the opposition who made masks. We who got hand sanitizer and start distributing to people. The government never do that. They're taking credit today. Rodney Charles issued a brilliant release today. He showed, comparatively speaking, that Trinidad and Tobago may be among the worst in the Caribbean in dealing with COVID-19. Dial Singh now wants sympathy. Tell us his daughter and son-in-law got the thing. We are very sorry for them. Our heart goes out to them. We wish them a very smooth, speedy, quick recovery. You don't wish that for anybody. Anybody. But now is not a time to bring sympathy and look for sympathy. Now is a time to explain to the country why our parents and grandparents and loved ones could not get bed, could not get medication under your watch. Why did they stop the oncology center that we were building? Why? So Dial Singh, don't try to get sympathy today. He doesn't need sympathy, he needs a latte. Yeah. So brothers and sisters, these are some of the issues. I want to end now and wrap up to thank all of you for your overwhelming support. I have been here in these parts for many years. And sometimes, even me, sometimes a lion does get tired. Huh? But sometimes, when I look back, I say, I have been here. I told a group in a private meeting a few weeks ago, I said, this is a special election for me, Mr. Vijay Ramai. A special election. It is special because today, on August 10th, a voter will go to the polls who, when they born, I was the member of parliament. And today, we have done a lot for these communities, whether it's supporting sports, whether it is supporting cultural events, supporting the mandir, the mosque, the churches. We have done a lot. We have supported a lot of people. During the COVID pandemic, we gave out 2,000 hampers without the help of the government. Huh? Monkey Tongue Government School was built and opened by Tim Gopi Singh, Monkey Tongue right here. I tell the driver who bringing me, I said, if you travel the Caribbean, that is a university. You could convert that to a university. So we have done a lot for the people, and the people know it. They know that if they asked for a road and we couldn't help, it was not because we didn't want to, it was because we could not do so. We did not have the power, the resources. Every time people text me, I forward to Brian, to Kimmy, to Nicholas, up to today, I think. Boy, try and help this one, try and do this, try and do this. When you get into government, they don't have to try, they will do it. Because you will have the resources to help. I had a touching message today and I share with you. And this is part of in politics, people cuss you and they tell you all kind of things. That's the nature of politics. And I tell the young people who entered politics this year, I told them, to survive like myself and others, your skin must be like crapoback pumpkin. It can't be like tomatoes. You can't survive. Yeah? You need thick skin. But today I got a call from someone, he's a medical doctor. So he asked me if I remembered him. I said, of course I remember the name. Wasn't sure I remember the face. He said, I'm so and so. I said, yeah, it's good to hear from you, man. He said, but in case you didn't remember, several years ago, I was in medical school, and I didn't have the resources to continue, and I would have dropped out, or I would have had it very difficult to continue. And he said, when I came to you, you put things in place, you make a few phone calls, you ask some friends for help, and I got the resources to continue and finish med school. And today I'm a doctor. I said, well, that's very nice because we're very happy. He said, and more than that, now that I'm a doctor, I want to see you because I want to make a donation to your campaign. I thought that was a very touching moment, that you can send our children to school. They can do well, they can be so successful, and they have the gratitude and the love that when the time comes like now, they come back to you to offer some help. So those are touching moments for me, as well as I embark upon another chapter in my journey of public service. It is always nice to share with you those treasured moments when people, and there are many like that. That is just one, I tell you. There are many moments that I've shared over the years with people here, whether it's Shivratri night, whether it's during Ramadan, whether it's a sporting occasion. Look, I went to a cricket match recently, and the two teams playing cricket is sponsored by Roodal Munilal. So I left. Because where you go stay there? You get in trouble? So these are the issues, brothers and sisters. Thank you for your support. I expect the people of Barakpur to come out in their numbers. I expect the people of Monkey Tongue to break down that door at 6 a.m. in the morning on August 10th. We expect the people of Oropouche to come out in their numbers. I told people the fight in Oropouche East, you know, it's looking a little dicey. We're not too sure. We're not sure if the fella will save the deposit or lose the deposit. There's a little trick there. We're not sure. We want to take away the deposit from that candidate of the PNM. Will you help me? Will you help me to remove him? Will you help us to remove all the PNM from Oropouche? And will you help us to put Kamla Prasad Bisesa as Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago? Long live the great people of Barakpur, the great people of Oropouche, and long live our struggle for equality, justice. And the third thing we must always struggle for is prosperity for all our people. Thank you, and God bless you all.
I think Dr. Munilal deserves a more resounding round of applause.
He's a champion, he's a lion, he's a champion, he's a champion.
So before you leave, I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of the Oropouche East Executive and the entire coordinating team for the campaign. Thank you so very much for being here, for our listening audience through on various airwaves. Thank you all so much. The doctor that pledged his support. We also have other doctors and lawyers who have pledged their support to the Oropouche East campaign. So much so that on Sunday coming, at Esperance Regional Complex, there will be a legal and medical clinic from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So we are encouraging all of you to spread the word and get our constituents out there to benefit from that. And Douglas politics, for all of us who have been following Anil Roberts, Douglas politics rolls into Oropouche East, into the Lion's Den. So look out for that. And finally, on August 1st, we are preparing and planning for our Oropouche East campaign motorcade. So more details will come on that. So look out for that information in your WhatsApp and your Facebook and different forms of communication. So thank you all so very much and have a safe journey to your respective destinations. Good night, everybody.
Oropouche, welcome the lion, the royal lion. Sing, Munilal a lion, he's a champion, he's a lion, he's a champion. Roaring lion, he's a champion. Experience full of education, Munilal a lion, he's a champion, he's a lion, he's a champion. Roaring lion, he's a champion. Experience full of education, a man with compassion. passion and courage. The people them fear him, the people them love him. He have the skills and the man have the knowledge. Look how much people he help in a village. So much kids he send out to college. And I tell you he's the voice of the poor. He stand firm in the times of war. Oropouche you voting for. Munilal a lion, he's a champion. He's a lion, he's a champion. Raw in lion, he's a champion. Experience full of education. Munilal a lion, he's a champion. He's a lion, he's a champion. Raw in lion, he's a champion. Experience full of education. Them try bringing down your character, but as a lion you know you's a fighter. Them things only make you stronger. Oropouche trying to dip in your finger. One thing I want you to remember, he's a doctor, also a lawyer, who was there in the times of trouble, who was there in the times of need, who was there in the times of trouble, who was there in the times of need. Munilal a lion, he's a champion. He's a lion, he's a champion. Raw in lion, he's a champion. Munilal a lion, he's a champion. He's